Some people spend their entire lives searching for a ghost. Damien Moretti found his on a rain-soaked street at 11:47 p.m. The first thing I felt was cold. Not the kind that comes from winter. The kind that seeps into your bones when you've been lying on wet pavement too long. Rain tapped against my face in a steady rhythm. Headlights blurred above me. Voices drifted in and out like distant radio stations. I tried to move. Pain shot through my shoulder and forced me still. My cheek rested against the asphalt. Water pooled beneath me, carrying streaks of red fabric dye from my torn coat into the gutter. Around me, people watched from the sidewalks. Nobody came closer. Nobody asked if I was okay. In New York, people learned to keep moving. I couldn't blame them. I barely understood how I'd ended up there myself. My fingers curled weakly around the pavement as another wave of dizziness rolled through me. Then everything changed. Tires hissed against the rain. One vehicle stopped. Then another. Then 3 more. Black SUVs lined the street like shadows taking shape. Even through my haze, I felt the shift around me. Pedestrians stopped walking. Conversations died. The city seemed to hold its breath. Doors opened. Men stepped out wearing dark suits and expressions that discouraged questions. They moved with quiet confidence, scanning the area before creating a path toward the center of the street. Toward me. I wanted to sit up. I wanted to leave. My body ignored every command. Then I saw him. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dark hair touched by rain. He stepped from the last SUV like he owned the block beneath his feet. Maybe he did. The streetlights painted silver across his black overcoat. Every person around him seemed smaller somehow. Less important. He didn't hurry. He didn't need to. Power never rushed. The man approached until he stood only a few feet away. His expression remained unreadable. Cold. Controlled. The kind of face that revealed nothing. For a second, I thought he would walk right past me. Then his eyes dropped to my neck. Everything stopped. The rain. The traffic. The noise inside my head. His gaze locked onto the necklace resting against my collarbone. A simple silver pendant hanging from a worn chain. The only thing I'd owned for as long as I could remember. The only thing that had survived every foster home, every move, every mistake. The man's face changed. Not much. Just enough. His jaw tightened. His breathing paused. For the first time since stepping out of the SUV, he looked human. Like he'd seen something impossible. One of the men beside him spoke quietly. "Boss?" No answer. The stranger took another step forward. His eyes never left the necklace. Rain dripped from his hair onto his coat. Still he stared. Like he was looking at a memory instead of a piece of jewelry. Finally, he knelt beside me. Close enough for me to see the storm hidden behind his calm expression. Close enough to hear the words he whispered. Impossible. My pulse quickened. Not because I knew him. I didn't. Not because I understood what was happening. I couldn't. But because something in his voice told me my life had just collided with a secret buried long before I was born. Then he looked at the men behind him and gave a single order. Take her with us. As darkness closed around me again, I saw him reach toward the necklace with a hand that almost trembled. And for the first time in 20 years, Damien Moretti looked afraid. I woke to the sound of rain tapping against glass. For a moment, I thought I was back in my apartment. Back in my ordinary life. Then I opened my eyes and knew immediately that nothing about this place was ordinary. The ceiling stretched high above me, trimmed with elegant crown molding. Soft lighting glowed from recessed fixtures. The sheets beneath my fingers felt impossibly smooth. Even the air smelled expensive, carrying faint notes of cedar and something clean I could not identify. Panic arrived before memory did. I pushed myself upright too quickly. The room tilted. A sharp ache spread through my shoulder. I pressed a hand against my forehead and forced myself to breathe. Hospital. Street. Rain. Black SUVs. The man who had stared at my necklace like it held the answer to a question he had spent years asking. My hand flew to my throat. The necklace was still there. Relief flooded through me so suddenly that I almost laughed. A quiet knock interrupted the silence. Before I could answer, the door opened. A woman in navy scrubs stepped inside carrying a tray. She looked professional, calm, the kind of person who immediately made a room feel safer. "Good morning, Claire," she said gently. My stomach tightened. "How do you know my name?" The woman offered a small smile. "You have been asking that question for 3 hours in your sleep." She set the tray beside the bed. Tea. Water. Toast. Fresh fruit. Nothing about this felt like a hospital. "Where am I?" I asked. "Somewhere secure." That was not an answer. She knew it. I knew it. Yet she did not elaborate. "Who brought me here?" Her expression shifted slightly. Not fear. Respect. "Mr. Moretti." The name meant nothing to me. But the way she said it made it feel important. After she left, I climbed carefully from the bed and crossed the room. Rain streaked the enormous windows overlooking Manhattan. The view alone had to be worth millions. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. Blonde hair tangled from sleep. Bruises darkening along one arm. Green eyes filled with confusion. I barely recognized myself. Another knock came. This time, I already knew who stood outside. The room seemed to know too. The air changed before the door even opened. Damien Moretti entered without hurry. Black dress shirt. Dark slacks. No tie. Somehow he looked even more intimidating than he had in the rain. He stopped several feet away. His eyes immediately found the necklace. Not my face. Not my injuries. The necklace. Again. Silence stretched between us. Long enough for my pulse to quicken. "Who are you?" I finally asked. His gaze lifted to meet mine. For a second, something flashed behind his calm expression. Not anger. Not coldness. Recognition. "That," he said quietly, looking at the pendant once more, "is exactly what I am trying to find out." Then he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and removed an old photograph. The edges were worn with age. The image had faded slightly over time. He placed it carefully on the table between us. My breath caught. The woman in the photograph was smiling at the camera. And hanging around her neck was the exact same necklace. I stared at the photograph until the edges blurred. The woman could not have been older than 25. She had the same green eyes I saw every morning in the mirror. The same shape of nose. The same slight curve at the corner of her smile. Most unsettling of all was the necklace. The silver pendant resting against her neck was identical to mine down to the smallest detail. My fingers tightened around the chain hanging from my collarbone. "Who is she?" I asked. Damien did not answer immediately. He moved toward the window overlooking the city. Rain continued sliding down the glass in silver ribbons. "Her name was Evelyn Harper," he finally said. "And she disappeared 20 years ago." A chill crawled through me. "Disappeared?" He nodded once. "Without explanation. Without a trace." I looked back at the photograph. Something about the woman felt familiar, but not in a way I could explain. Like hearing a song from childhood and almost remembering the words. "Why do you think this has something to do with me?" I asked. Damien turned toward me. His expression remained controlled, but his eyes were different now. Focused. Searching. "Because that necklace was custom made." His voice was quiet. "There was only one." My stomach dropped. That is impossible. I agree. The room fell silent. Somewhere beyond the walls, thunder rolled across Manhattan. I lowered myself into a chair, trying to make sense of something that refused to make sense. I was adopted, I said. My parents told me they found me through an agency in Boston when I was 6. Damien's jaw tightened slightly. Do you remember anything before that? I opened my mouth. Closed it again. Thought about birthdays I could not place. Faces I could not name. Rooms that appeared in dreams and vanished before morning. Not much. Try. I looked down at the pendant. A memory flickered. Brief. Fragile. A woman's laugh. Warm sunlight. The scent of flowers. Then nothing. Gone as quickly as it appeared. I cannot. Damien studied me for several seconds. Then he crossed the room and picked up the photograph. Before putting it away, he looked at it one last time. The expression on his face caught me off guard. It was not the look of a powerful man controlling a situation. It was the look of someone carrying a loss too heavy for too long. You knew her, I said softly. His eyes lifted to mine. For the first time I saw hesitation. Yes. The answer came almost as a whisper. Before I could ask another question, a knock sounded at the door. One of the suited men stepped inside. His face was calm, but something about his posture felt urgent. Boss, he said. The records came back. Damien took the folder without a word. He opened it and scanned the first page. The color drained from his face. Not completely. Just enough for me to notice. My pulse quickened. What is it? He looked up slowly. The silence stretched so long that my heart began pounding. Then he spoke 5 words that changed everything. Claire Bennett does not exist. The words hit harder than any pain I had felt since waking up. Claire Bennett does not exist. I stared at Damien, waiting for him to explain, to tell me this was some mistake buried in a database. Instead, he handed me the folder. My fingers trembled as I turned the pages. My birth certificate was there. My school records. My driver's license. My college transcripts. Everything that should have proven I was real. Yet every page carried the same note attached by the investigator. Reissued. Replaced. Reconstructed. The dates stretched back 20 years. What does this mean? I asked. Damien remained silent for a moment. Rain tapped softly against the windows behind him. It means someone built your identity. My stomach tightened. That is impossible. Someone erased the original records and replaced them with new ones. He glanced toward the folder. Whoever did it was thorough. I shook my head. None of it made sense. I remembered first grade. Birthday parties. Summer vacations. A tiny apartment in Boston where my adoptive mother used to make pancakes every Sunday morning. Those memories felt real. They were real. Were they not? My parents would never lie to me. The words came out weaker than I intended. Damien did not argue. Somehow that made it worse. The man in the suit shifted uneasily near the door. There is more, he said. Damien looked at him sharply. The room grew quiet. Tell me, Damien said. The man opened another folder. We found the adoption agency. Relief washed through me. Finally. Proof. Something solid. Something normal. Then the man continued. It burned down 18 years ago. My heart dropped. What? Every record was destroyed. Every employee disappeared within 6 months. The room seemed smaller suddenly. Harder to breathe in. I looked at Damien. He was already reading the new documents. His expression darkened with every page. What now? I asked. He closed the folder slowly. Now we find out why someone spent 20 years hiding you. The sentence settled heavily between us. Hiding me. Not protecting. Not helping. Hiding. A strange memory surfaced without warning. A white house with blue shutters. A woman kneeling beside me in a garden. Sunlight. Roses. Her voice. I could almost hear it. Almost. Then it vanished again like smoke. I pressed my hand against my temple. I keep remembering things. Damien's eyes immediately focused on me. What kind of things? Pieces. Nothing complete. His expression sharpened. Not with fear. With hope. The realization unsettled me. This man wanted answers as badly as I did. Maybe more. Before I could say anything else, a phone vibrated on the table. Damien glanced at the screen. For the first time since I met him, genuine alarm crossed his face. He answered immediately. The person on the other end spoke rapidly. I could not hear the words. I did not need to. Damien's reaction told me enough. Every muscle in his body went rigid. When? He asked quietly. Silence. Then another question. Are you certain? More silence. Finally he ended the call and lowered the phone. The room felt colder. What happened? I asked. Damien looked directly at me. Someone broke into the storage facility where Evelyn Harper's belongings were kept. My pulse quickened. And? His jaw tightened. They did not take everything. He paused. They only took her photographs. Sleep became impossible after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photograph. The woman smiling beside a garden I somehow felt I had seen before. The necklace. The missing records. The stolen photographs. Pieces of a puzzle scattered across 20 years. By morning, Manhattan had disappeared behind a curtain of gray clouds. I stood by the window wrapped in a borrowed sweater, watching rain slide down the glass. The city looked distant from up here. Smaller. Easier to forget. A quiet knock interrupted my thoughts. Damien entered carrying a thin folder. He looked like he had not slept either. There were faint shadows beneath his eyes, though his posture remained perfectly controlled. He set the folder on the table between us. What is that? I asked. Everything we found about Evelyn during the last 6 months before she vanished. My heart skipped. Damien opened the folder carefully. Inside were copies of receipts, photographs, handwritten notes, and appointment records. Normal things. Ordinary things. The final months of an ordinary life. Yet one photograph immediately caught my attention. My breath froze. A white house with blue shutters. Roses growing beside the porch. The exact image that had appeared in my memory. I grabbed the photograph before I could stop myself. This house. Damien leaned forward. You recognize it? I stared at the image. My pulse hammered in my ears. I do not know how. The words barely came out. But I have seen it before. Silence settled over the room. Damien did not look surprised. If anything, he looked relieved. Where? He asked. I closed my eyes. For a second, the memory sharpened. Warm sunlight. A swing hanging from an oak tree. The smell of roses. A woman's voice calling my name. Not Claire. Something else. Something softer. Then the image shattered. Gone again. I opened my eyes, frustrated. I cannot remember. Damien nodded slowly. You are remembering more than you realize. Before I could respond, another man entered the room. Older. Silver hair. Expensive suit. The kind of person who looked comfortable around power. He handed Damien a tablet. You need to see this. Damien studied the screen. The color drained slightly from his face. Again. The same reaction he had when something truly unexpected happened. He turned the screen toward me. Security footage filled the display. A grainy image from the storage facility. The timestamp showed 3 nights earlier. A hooded figure moving through a hallway. Stopping at a shelf. Taking only one box. The box containing Evelyn's photographs. Then the figure paused. Looked directly at the camera. Even through the poor image quality, one detail stood out. Around the person's neck hung a silver pendant. My silver pendant. The room suddenly felt too small. That cannot be possible, I whispered. Damien's eyes met mine. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then the older man broke the silence. There is something else. He placed another photograph on the table. It was old. Faded. Taken more than 20 years ago. A woman stood beside Evelyn Harper, both smiling into the camera. My hands began to shake. Because the second woman was not a stranger. It was my adoptive mother. For several seconds, I forgot how to breathe. My eyes remained fixed on the photograph lying between us. My adoptive mother stood beside Evelyn Harper with one arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling at something beyond the camera. They did not look like strangers. They looked like friends. Close friends. The kind who shared secrets. The kind who trusted each other. A strange pressure built in my chest. That is not possible, I whispered. My mother never mentioned her. Damien did not take his eyes off the photograph. Maybe she had a reason. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend the woman who had raised me. But uncertainty had become impossible to ignore. Every answer uncovered 2 more questions. Every memory seemed connected to something hidden. The older man folded his hands behind his back. The photograph was found inside a safety deposit box rented under Evelyn's name. I looked up. Was there anything else? He exchanged a glance with Damien. Neither of them answered immediately. That silence told me everything. There was more. Much more. Damien finally reached into the folder and removed a yellowed envelope. Time had softened the edges. The paper looked fragile enough to crumble. This was inside the box. My pulse quickened. Across the front, written in faded blue ink, were 4 words. For Lily, if needed. I stared at the handwriting. Something deep inside me stirred. A feeling I could not explain. Familiarity. Loss. Longing. Who is Lily? I asked quietly. Damien's expression changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. We do not know. The answer landed heavily. He handed me the envelope. My fingers hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. The handwriting matched the name on the front. I unfolded it carefully. The first line made my heart stop. If you are reading this, it means I ran out of time. The room disappeared. The rain. The city. Damien. Everything faded beyond those words. I kept reading. There were no names. No explanations. Only warnings. Instructions. References to protecting a child. References to people who could never be trusted. References to a promise that had to survive no matter the cost. Then I reached the final sentence. The bloodline must remain hidden until she remembers who she is. My hands trembled. The paper slipped slightly between my fingers. She? I whispered. Nobody answered. Because nobody knew. Or maybe someone did. A memory flashed through my mind without warning. A woman's voice. Soft. Urgent. Hold on to your necklace, sweetheart. Never take it off. My entire body froze. I had heard those words before. Not in a dream. Not in imagination. In real life. Somewhere. Sometime. I looked up sharply. I remembered something. Damien stepped closer immediately. Hope flickered behind his eyes. What did you remember? I opened my mouth to answer. Then the lights in the room suddenly went dark. Every lamp. Every screen. Every light across the entire floor vanished at once. The city beyond the windows remained visible beneath the storm clouds. But inside the penthouse, everything fell into silence. Then a single emergency light blinked red near the doorway. And beneath it, someone had taped a photograph that had not been there seconds earlier. A recent photograph. A photograph of me. For a moment, nobody moved. The emergency light painted the room in a dull red glow, turning familiar faces into shadows. My eyes remained locked on the photograph taped beneath the light. It had been taken recently. Very recently. I was standing outside a grocery store carrying 2 paper bags. Wearing the same blue coat I had donated 3 months ago. The date stamped in the corner was from last week. A cold wave rolled through me. Someone had been watching me. Not for days. Not for weeks. 4 months. Maybe years. Damien crossed the room first. He removed the photograph carefully and studied every detail. The older man immediately pulled out a phone. Security teams. Backup systems. Emergency protocols. Voices filled the darkness around me. Yet somehow, I heard none of it. My attention remained fixed on the image. There was something else. Something hidden. Damien noticed it at the same time I did. His eyes narrowed. Zoom in. The older man handed over the tablet. Damien photographed the picture and enlarged the background. My pulse quickened. Standing across the street behind me was a woman. Blonde hair. Sunglasses. Long gray coat. Most people would never have noticed her. But I did. Because I knew that coat. I knew the way she stood. The way she tilted her head. The memory hit me so hard I nearly lost my balance. Claire? Damien's voice sounded distant. I know her. Silence followed. Every person in the room looked at me. Who? Damien asked. My throat tightened. I do not know her name. The answer frustrated me instantly. But I have seen her before. Another memory surfaced. A coffee shop in Boston. 2 years ago. The woman sitting near the window reading a newspaper. Then another. A train station. 6 months later. The same woman standing near the ticket counter. Then another. A bookstore. Last winter. Always watching. Never speaking. Never approaching. I had noticed her dozens of times without realizing it. The room seemed to tilt beneath me. Damien's expression hardened. You are certain? I nodded. I thought it was coincidence. The older man exchanged a look with Damien. Neither seemed comforted by the answer. The light suddenly flickered. Once. Twice. Then power returned across the penthouse. Warm light flooded the room again. Yet the atmosphere remained tense. Damien stared at the photograph longer than anyone else. Finally he placed it on the table beside Evelyn's letter. Side by side. Past and present. Somehow connected. There is something we missed, he said quietly. The older man frowned. What? Damien pointed to the letter. Evelyn never wrote that the bloodline must remain hidden. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the paper immediately. He was right. The sentence looked different. Slightly darker ink. Different pressure marks. Different handwriting. Someone had added it later. The realization sent chills through me. Someone had altered the letter. Someone had manipulated the evidence. Someone wanted us to believe a specific story. Damien slowly exhaled. Which means whoever stole the photographs did not remove evidence. His eyes met mine. They planted evidence. Thunder rolled outside. The storm had returned. Heavy rain struck the windows. Then another realization hit me. One even worse than the first. If someone was planting clues instead of hiding them, then they wanted us to keep digging. And people only leave breadcrumbs when they are leading someone exactly where they want them to go. Then Damien's phone vibrated. He answered immediately. Listened. Said nothing. The color left his face. Slowly, he lowered the phone and looked directly at me. They found the White House with the blue shutters. My heart stopped. What happened? Damien held my gaze for several seconds before answering. It has been empty for 20 years. He paused. Until yesterday. The drive took just over 2 hours. Rain followed us the entire way, turning the highway into a ribbon of reflected lights and shadows. I sat in the back of the SUV staring out the window while questions circled endlessly through my mind. The White House. The missing years. Evelyn Harper. The woman who had watched me for years without speaking. Every answer seemed to create a larger mystery. By the time we reached the property, dawn was beginning to push through the clouds. The house stood exactly as it had in the photograph. White siding. Blue shutters. An oak tree near the front yard. Roses growing along the porch railing. My breath caught. I knew this place. Not because I had seen a picture. Because some part of me remembered standing here before. The gates were already open. Damien stepped out first. The older man followed. Several security vehicles waited nearby, but nobody spoke. The silence felt almost respectful. Like everyone understood we were standing at the edge of something important. I climbed out slowly. The moment my shoes touched the gravel driveway, another memory surfaced. A little girl running toward the porch. Laughter. Summer sunlight. A woman waving from a rocking chair. The image disappeared before I could grab hold of it. I pressed a hand against my chest. Claire? Damien's voice was low. Are you all right? I nodded even though I was not sure it was true. We walked toward the house together. The front door stood slightly open. Not forced. Not damaged. Simply open. As if someone expected visitors. Inside, dust covered most of the furniture. White sheets draped over chairs and tables. The air carried the scent of old wood and forgotten years. Yet something felt wrong. The house should have looked abandoned. Instead, signs of recent activity appeared everywhere. A coffee mug sat beside the kitchen sink. Fresh flowers rested in a glass vase. A lamp in the living room had been plugged in recently. Someone had been here. Recently. My pulse quickened. Damien moved carefully through the rooms. The older man checked the second floor. I found myself drawn toward the back of the house. Toward a narrow hallway that felt strangely familiar. At the end stood a small room. The door was painted pale blue. My hand trembled as I pushed it open. The room inside was untouched. A child's room. A bookshelf. A rocking horse. Framed drawings hanging on the walls. Time seemed to stop. Tears filled my eyes without warning. Because I recognized the drawings. Not all of them. Just one. A picture of a silver necklace hanging beneath a bright yellow sun. In the corner, written in uneven handwriting, was a name. Lily. My knees nearly gave out beneath me. Lily. The name from the letter. The name attached to the warning. The name I had never heard before and somehow already knew. Then I noticed something else. Resting on the small desk beneath the window was a single envelope. New. Clean. Untouched by dust. My name was written across the front in elegant handwriting. Claire. Beneath it, another sentence had been added. Or perhaps it was not meant for Claire at all. Perhaps it was meant for someone else. Someone hidden beneath 20 years of lies. The message contained only 6 words. Welcome home. It is time to remember. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. The paper inside carried the same elegant handwriting. The same calm confidence. The same feeling that whoever had written it knew me better than I knew myself. I unfolded the letter slowly and began to read. Lily, if you were standing in this room, then everything happened exactly as we hoped. The world knew you by another name. That was necessary. The tears came before I reached the second sentence. Not because I understood everything. Because deep inside, something finally felt true. I continued reading. Your mother loved you more than anything. She knew there would come a day when people would search for answers. She knew some would try to rewrite the past. That is why she trusted only a few people. One of them was the woman who raised you. My vision blurred. My adoptive mother. The woman I had spent days doubting. The woman I thought had hidden the truth from me. She had not stolen my life. She had protected it. A sob caught in my throat. Damien stood quietly beside me as I kept reading. Your necklace was never meant to reveal your status or your inheritance. It was meant to lead one person back to you. Someone who promised he would never stop looking. I slowly lowered the letter. My eyes found Damien. For the first time since we met, he looked away first. The silence between us carried 20 years of unfinished history. You knew, I whispered. He nodded once. I made a promise. His voice was rougher than I had ever heard it. To your mother. The room seemed to hold its breath. She knew she might not be able to stay with you. She asked me to protect you if anything happened. I looked down at the necklace resting against my collarbone. The necklace that had survived every move. Every loss. Every unanswered question. It had not been leading me to power. It had been leading me home. The final page of the letter slipped from the envelope. I picked it up. At the bottom was a photograph. A recent one. My adoptive mother, older now, smiling beside a mailbox. Written beneath it was an address in Vermont. My heart nearly stopped. She is alive. Damien looked at the photograph and smiled for the first time. Not the smile of a powerful man. The smile of someone finally released from a burden. 3 days later, I stood on the porch of a small white farmhouse surrounded by maple trees. The autumn wind carried the scent of pine and fresh earth. The front door opened before I could knock. My adoptive mother stepped outside. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she crossed the distance between us and wrapped her arms around me. I cried into her shoulder like a child. She cried too. There were explanations. Apologies. Stories that lasted late into the night. Some questions finally received answers. Others never would. But that was all right. Life rarely gave perfect endings. It only gave meaningful ones. Months later, the storm that had followed me for so long finally began to fade. The truth was no longer hidden. The missing years no longer controlled me. And every morning when I touched the silver necklace around my neck, I remembered something important. The night Damien Moretti recognized it, I thought my life was falling apart. In reality, it was finding its way back together. Because sometimes the smallest thing can carry the biggest promise. And sometimes a necklace is not a piece of jewelry at all. Sometimes it is a path leading home.